Hey there, it's Mazzy, and this is a video showcasing a handful of late career masterpieces. Fantastic records from artists sort of in the twilight of their lives and who came up with albums that I consider wonderful records. Now, masterpieces, that's up to the listener. Some of you may quibble with me on the term masterpieces, but that's fine. But here's my criteria. I decided not to show any bands here. These are pretty much solo artists. Some have been in bands, but these are their solo work as they got older, as they put out, maybe they surprised us because they've been, in some cases, putting out albums for years, and all of a sudden they just hit this sweet spot with this brilliant work of art, from my point of view. I didn't include any artists that their lives were cut short and all of a sudden their last album is considered a really great album. For instance, like Prince or John Lennon, whether you call Double Fantasy a masterpiece or not. But I didn't include artists that were cut short in life and that is their final album. I wanted someone who's had a pretty substantial career. Maybe they hadn't made an album in a decade or more, and they came back with something unexpected. So I piled these. I think there's about 15 artists here, and they're in alphabetical order, so they're not ranked, but that doesn't matter. And some are obvious choices, and there might be a few albums here that are bubbling under. So obviously one that pops out right away when I thought about this is David Bowie's 2015 album, Black Star. Now, I bought this on a Friday, new release Friday. I picked it up Friday, I listened to it all weekend. It's a dark, brooding, beautiful album. Some avant-garde jazz mixes, some just dark, deep vocals, and Monday morning, the following Monday, woke up to we heard about the death of David Bowie. So this is an album he knew would be his last album. It's a lovely, lovely album, but it's a dark album. But the darkness makes it a masterpiece from my point of view. So David Bowie's amazing Black Star. Cash, Johnny Cash. This is American Music 4. Of course, we all know the infamous story of Rick Rubin literally revitalizing the career of Johnny Cash. An unknown, big bearded man shows up backstage in the dressing room with Johnny Cash and says, "I want to record you. I want to strip you down. I want the essence of Johnny Cash." After, by that point, Mercury Records, after Columbia dropped him, and he was playing around. He was great, but he was lost creatively. And Rick Rubin had him bring out the catalog of his back catalog of songs. Some he wrote, some that he just knew, and brought in a lot of interesting material from newer, younger artists. And obviously the key on here is a rendition of Hurt, the 9 Inch Nails songs. And I can't imagine anyone thinking that a 9 Inch Nails songs reworked by Johnny Cash would be something definitive, and it certainly was here. The first time I ever saw Your Face, that beautiful English folk song made famous by Roberta Flack in this country, in the U.S., Bridge Over Troubled Waters, Danny Boy, and so many other great songs on here. But Johnny Cash, American 4, The Man Comes Around. Of course, another one who was touring at 80 years old, partly because of his love for music and poetry, but also he got messed up by a manager who stole literally millions from him. But this is the album he's working on as he was dying as well. Leonard Cohen's You Want It Darker, a very similar, in essence, not musically, but the same kind of thing that the Bowie's album. He knew he was dying, he was sick. His son Adam produced this record. This is a gorgeous, I think it's a masterpiece. There was a posthumous album afterward that his son produced, which is really a wonderful record, but this is the kicker. Again, I'm not going to always show the final albums of artists, and not all these albums obviously are gone who have left us, but these first three obviously are. You Want It Darker opens up with, it's just this beautiful song, and it has Leonard Cohen's cantor from his from Canadian Temple does this great Hebrew chant within that song, and it's a chilling piece of music, and this is a beautiful, beautiful record. Now these next two are companion pieces, and I think these are two that a lot of people don't know, and they should, and maybe you could argue they could be condensed in one and edited, re-edited a little bit, but Ray Davies, obviously Ray Davies for the Kinks. Now I think these covers, the cover art on these records, it's terrible cover art. That to me was a big disappointment. But Ray Davies had done several albums before, but it took a long time for him to do a solo album, surprisingly, after the Kinks. It wasn't, I believe, until the late 2000s that he really did a solo album aside from a soundtrack, Waterloo Sunset, way back when. But this was a brilliant combination. He has the Jayhawks backing him up on these sessions, and he does have some poetry in a way, more autobiographical wordings introducing some of the songs. But the sound of the recording, the songs are fantastic, and I think the Jayhawks were a perfect backing band for him on Americana 1 and Americana Volume 2. I think these need a new revisit from people who are like the Kinks that haven't heard these. I would almost go so far, and I hate to say this, not being a creative, it's easy for us to be the critics and the fans. I would love to be able to go in with a producer, maybe with Ray or without Ray, and edit these down into a one double record set and kind of, leave some of the intros, take some of them out, because there's so much wonderful work in here. But I think these deserve to be on this, late career masterpieces, and I say that with an asterisk there. A record that came out right at the beginning of the pandemic, and those of us who heard it were just in awe and gobsmacked in a way, and that's Murder Most Foul, and that was this 15-20 minute incredible piece of music by Bob Dylan, and it was then put out on this album, Rough and Rowdy Ways, as a separate LP. You could go on forums and people argue, is that really part of the record? Is it a bonus disc? It's side D, but you had side A, B, and C, the rest of the record. This is a fantastic late career, and I think his voice is not the young Dylan we know, not even the mid-period Dylan we know and love, but there's a certain romanticist, there's a certain grittiness, there's a certain beauty to his voice now that is aged. I think Melinda Murphy said, like a fine wine, and I agree with that. And Murder Most Foul is a chilling piece of music, and one could argue that all it is, he's listing things off, and he's taking, the Beatles. We got I Want to Hold Your Hand, and we got Jack Kerouac, and we got this person and that person, and he rattles off one of those, anybody could have scribbled down, but it's Bob Dylan, and he does it fantastically. And Rough and Rowdy Ways, this is a masterpiece in my book, Bob Dylan. This is a beautifully recorded album. This is a great folk country record, and this is Chris Hillman. Chris Hillman obviously was the original member of the Byrds. He was in the Flying Breed Brothers with Graham Parsons and the Desert Road Band, and he made this album produced by Tom Petty and executive producer Herb Pedersen, who played with many years too. This is a gorgeous sounding record. The sad part of this record is it literally came out, I think, a week or 2 or 3 after Tom Petty died. So obviously Tom Petty worked on this and really brought something out of Chris Hillman. His vocals on here are incredible. The acoustic guitar on here is incredible. It's got several members of the Heartbreakers on here. It's really a well done record. He does open up with a Pete Seeger song that the Byrds covered early on, but the bells are rhythmy, and it's a wonderful folk song, beautifully recorded again, highlight, and I think it's a masterpiece in this country folk genre. Chris Hillman, he sounds great on this. Another one is a English folk artist, Bert Jansch, and John Renbourn were part of Pentangle, the great English folk rock jazz band in essence. This record has an amazing sound to it. It's, again, well recorded, has some great duets with the English singer Beth Orton on here. The opening track, the title track, Black Swan, is just a gorgeous piece of music. And I know the vinyl version of this is fairly rare at the point right now. Hopefully it'll come out again. But I love this record. Beautiful record. Black Swan by Bert Jansch. This was on Drag City Records from 2006. Someone who's made an amazing, again, the word comeback is bantered around so many times, and she's actually made, I think 3 great albums in the last 5, 6, 7 years. And again, a rebirth of this queen of country music is Loretta Lynn's album. This is Van Leer Rose. This is produced by Jack White, who is right there in the background. And Jack White, obviously a big fan of music and an archivist in a certain way. And of course, a love of vinyl and rock and roll and country music. And in a way, I love the arrangements and production that Jack White does for other people, almost more than what he does for himself. I get tired of him a little bit on his own work. I think he's really interesting and creative, and a big fan of vinyl and music and records and legacy artists. And what he did here, bringing Loretta Lynn out, and is that cover special? Isn't that a beautiful, beautiful photograph of one of the queens of country music? This is a fantastic record. This is 2010, so it's been out a dozen years again. And she's made several albums after this, so it's not her final record, but this is my favorite of these last few records of the great country artist Loretta Lynn. Now, an artist who hadn't made a record for, I think it was 15, 16 years, and to me, someone who's groundbreaking. This is also from 2010. This is Gil Scott Heron. I'm new here. Of course, in a way, the godfather, the grandfather of neo-soul music, of hip-hop music, of rap music. The Revolution will be televised from the late 1960s. It's a groundbreaking piece of music. This is a fantastic record. And it was a comeback. And, he died soon after this, as I recall. I don't remember the date. But, again, masterpiece record. Should be in this handful of records. Great record. Gil Scott Heron. I think someone who's made a lot of late great records and doesn't get a lot of love in terms of sales, and he's an innovator still, and he could play the game and make something more, I want to say accessible, but I think this is very accessible. And this is So Beautiful, So What? This is Paul Simon's record. He's made, his last few records are great. This is 2011, I believe, I think. Get Ready for Christmas Day. He takes this recording of this old preacher, which he's done. I mean, one would say that Paul Simon is an appropriation artist at times, but I give him credit because I think what he does is he introduces people. Obviously, what he did on Graceland with African artists and Black Mambaza. And what he did, I know there's these talk about him ripping off Los Lobos and things, and that's unfortunate. But his Rhythm of the Saints album with songs, a very percussive album of songs from South America. But this is a beautiful record. He also did an album, I think it's called Surprise, around this time, maybe a little after this, produced by Brian Eno. So he does take chances, he does try different things, and his voice is as beautiful as ever on this. So a wonderful, wonderful record, well recorded. Paul Simon, So Beautiful, So What, a late career. And he's still making music. Has he retired? I don't know. We don't know yet. Hopefully not. He still has something to offer, in my opinion. Now, Bruce Springsteen keeps putting out records. I'm showing these. These are sort of in a way, companion pieces, but it started out with this album, Western Stars. And I've been a Springsteen fan since his second album. I first saw him in '75, Born to Run tour, and many records beyond that and tours beyond that. But even though I kept buying his records, I got a little tired of Bruce Springsteen. I got a little tired. I love him. I think he comes from the right place of rock and roll and music, and his passion. His shows are intense and just amazing. This record surprised me because it has that expanse, that sort of Western expanse. This cover is the perfect photograph for this album. I think it's a beautiful, beautiful cover. It's got almost like those Glenn Campbell albums, By the Time I Get to Phoenix, that rich Americana sound, lush, gorgeous. It's a really a wonderful, wonderful record. Jimmy Webb type style of songwriting, who wrote By the Time I Get to Phoenix and so many other songs for Glenn Campbell and many other artists around that period. I think a year later, this came out, the Western Stars, songs from the film. There was a film that you should see recorded in his barn with literally a small orchestra, string instruments. And it's a companion piece, the same material for the most part. And it's a gorgeous record, beautiful record. I think these two together make up a definite masterpiece and a highlight in Bruce Springsteen's catalog. If you got tired of the whole E Street Band and him, and how can you get tired of the E Street Band? I mean, that sounds like sacrilege, even me bringing that up. But this is different. This is a whole different style or direction for Bruce Springsteen. I think it was really important for him to do this and make this record. So love that masterpiece. Now, Mavis Staples from the Staples Singers, soulful, gospel, fantastic album. And this is We Get By, very socially, politically charged record. And this was produced by Ben Harper. She's made 3 great records in the last decade. One produced by Jeff Tweedy, one produced by Ry Cooder, and this. And I think all 3 are great. I think this is the best and the most topical in a way, without being trendy. I mean, how can this could be trendy topical? This is a famous photograph by the great photographer Gordon Parks, an amazing African-American photographer who would go on to direct films, starting with Shaft, the original Shaft in 1971, I believe. But this is a socially charged, beautiful record and a great late career masterpiece as far as I'm concerned. Mavis Staples, We Get By. This record, I've never seen anyone show here, and this is a beautiful record. Again, well recorded, and this is Laughing Apple. This is by Yusef Cat Stevens, and what's great about this, he's made a couple records in the last decade. This is 2017, less than the last decade, produced by Paul Samuel Smith, and Paul Samuel Smith produced those great records like Teaser and the Fire Cat, and Where Do the Children Play, and Tea for the Tillerman, those few records, and it has that great acoustic folk sound. His voice is stupendous. This is kind of, in a way, a children's album, but it's not a kid's record by any stretch of the imagination. Now, those of you who don't know, he's an artist, illustrator as well. He did all his covers of Tea for the Tillerman and all those first records that we all know, the famous records. And he did this and a lovely book inside that goes with the lyrics and the storytelling of this record. This is so well done. There's such a beauty to this. The new record that came out recently by Bill Callahan and Billy Bobby It's Billy. The opening song is Blackness of the Night, which is the opening song on this record. And it's one of those songs, when I heard that record, I thought, wait a second, I know this song. Who did this song? And I just couldn't place it right away. It's the opening song, and it's a really beautiful song. Every song on here is well written, and co-produced again by Yusuf and Paul Samuel Smith, Cat Stevens, aka Cat Stevens. Fantastic record, came out in 2017. I love this record, and it is a masterpiece. Now we go darker here. I mean, as dark as that first album, Black Star, was, if you really follow the career and the sound of Scott Walker, you'll really hear the influence he had on David Bowie, that low, just sprawling, dirge-like segment of his music. And he made several records. He made a few records, of sort of country tinged records for a while, that really didn't resonate to people. But then he puts this album, The Drift, and he made another album like after this, or actually before this, I believe. This is maybe after that. This is on 4AD 2006. This is a dark, this is a depressing, this is a volatile album. It is a scary record, but it's so dark and so beautiful. And it's called The Drift. Scott Walker, an American expatriate who formed in the 60s the Walker Brothers. They weren't brothers, but they had some pop hits. He's got a semi-baritone, deep voice. And I have been into him for a number of years, but I've got into him again. I've revisited him again, and I'm totally in a Scott Walker mood right now, in the times or in especially this period. But even his first few albums, Scott Walker 1, 2, 3, 4, I think they're numbers. I think they need to do a box set of vinyl of those classic records. There's so much amazing material. And he's got this angular, out there lyric thing he does. The things he sings about are just really, really strange and dark. Oh my God. Cossacks Are, a song called Cossacks Are. Ooh, The Escape, A Lover Loves. A darkness to this, with, neoclassical, expansive darkness, and a masterpiece. Complete. Late career masterpiece. He just died, 3 years ago, 2 years ago? So this is going back a bit, but still, it is a masterpiece. One of the best first Grateful Dead solo albums, there was two, obviously, the Jerry Garcia album and the first Bobby Weir Ace album. Bob Weir put this album out, was it 4 years ago? 2016. How time flies. 6 years ago this came out. Like the Chris Hillman record, this is a great, beautiful, recorded, folk-ish album. Little country tunes, but very folky. And his voice, to me, has never sounded better. I've always, I love the Dead, and I've always loved the Dead. And I liked his voice on some songs. I really liked his voice mostly on the country songs, like El Paso, and the folk song Me and My Uncle, and those songs. And he does this kind of stuff really well. His voice is up there. It's in front. It's really well recorded. This was on Columbia Legacy Records 2016. Produced by Josh Kaufman and Bob Weir, and great kind of country-esque songs. Very expansive, very Americana. Beautiful record, late career masterpiece by far. If he could do more records like this, I'm all in. I'm all in. I know he's touring with the Dead End forever and the sub bands, but I'd like him to continue on this path because this is a lovely, lovely record. And lastly, an artist who puts out records almost as fast as Stephen King writes mystery books. He's typing like this and making a record here and putting these records out, and that's Neil Young, right? Now, Neil Young has probably had 47 albums since this record came out. And I know people that just don't understand this record, don't get this record. But this is a Daniel Lanois produced album called La Noise. And I think this is from 2010. This is really interesting because he brought Daniel Lanois in originally to do an acoustic record. And I think there are 2 acoustic tracks on here, but this became an electric guitar solo record in essence for the most part. He plays in Daniel Lanois' house in the living room, recording this thing, blasting these amps, doing echo effects and loops. And this is an amazing, creative record. It's not just another Neil Young record. I mean, Neil Young doesn't do always another, just the same Neil Young record. There are repetitive things. Every couple records, an acoustic kind of country folk record. We love that. Then there's the Dark Horse stuff. I almost picked Psychedelic Pill, and I love Psychedelic Pill with Crazy Horse, but I think this is more original. I think this is a masterpiece. Again, not everyone loves this record. It's kind of rare on vinyl. Hopefully, as he's releasing his archive series, this will eventually come out again on vinyl. But I just love this record. I remember getting the CD of this and just playing it to death in my car. One specific time, driving through Golden Gate Park in San Francisco and playing this record and blasting it. It was one of the few rainy days we were having at that point, and it was at the western end of the park by the Great Highway. And I have that sense memory of this record, and every time I play it, I think of that just meandering through Golden Gate Park one day. I don't know why, but this is a gorgeous record. Lanois by Neil Young. Thanks for watching. If you have any other late great records, masterpieces from Maslow's point of view, put them down in the comments. Thank you. Like, subscribe, and buy music. Check any of these records out. Any of them, I think, if you like my taste, you kind of get an idea. The Cat Stevens, oh my God, it's beautiful. Bob Weir, Chris Hillman. I mean, all these. Gil Scott-Heron is an amazing record. So every record here I showed is a masterpiece to me. And Mazzy loves you, especially you.